Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Scruffy Movies podcast. I'm Zach Wallace.
And I'm John Crocker.
And today we are recording this on Sunday, the Sunday of Comic-Con. So if you are any type of nerd, video game nerd, movie nerd, TV show nerd, comic nerd, I'm sure you have at least seen something to do with news that was dropped at the San Diego Comic-Con. And that is actually what this episode is going to be about, because they have dropped so many trailers, news, like announcements, things that we're just super excited for. So when we were hopping into this week, I was like, we can just do a San Diego Comic-Con wrap up, because I know that we'll have a lot to talk about.
So where do we even begin? Are you going to do it by how the timeline it was announced at Comic-Con, or are you going
Yes, actually, that's how I went back on my movie news website, joblo.com, which Crocker hates. I went back on that as far as I could see until I started to get Comic-Con news, and then I just went up from there. So I start basically with the first stuff that was announced, and that takes us all the way through to the most recent stuff, which was probably going to be the MCU announcements that were made last night. So full disclosure, I did mention when recording this on Sunday, Comic-Con is still going on. So if there's any cool news or things that happen that we don't mention in this episode, we might have just missed it. But if it's super cool, I'm sure that we will talk about it in a later episode. But for now, let's start with some news we got on, I believe, Thursday, or some announcements and stuff. And the first thing I have written down is the It Chapter 2 trailer.
Awesome. All grown up.
Yeah, it looks, and this was actually the second trailer that we've gotten, and I thought this one looked amazing. It looks super trippy, which I'm currently listening to the It audiobook, and I am just now basically getting to the part where the adults are going to confront Pennywise about killing him. So there's a lot of trippy stuff I saw the adults doing, especially there at the end, that I have not seen in the book yet. But it might still be coming up. But it makes me very curious for how they're going to handle this. It looks like it has the exact same tone and feel as the first movie, which it's no secret that I loved the first movie. So I'm super excited for this one. And I've mentioned it before, and I'll mention it again. Their casting is just pitch perfect. Not only does the characters in this, the grown-up characters, act like they feel like they're the same characters as the first one, they look exactly like the kids. They look exactly like them.
Now they're doing it this way because that's the way the original was, correct? Where it's the chapter where they're young and then the chapter where they come back as adults.
No, actually, the 1990s miniseries follows it much more accurately than this does, which is, in the book, it's kind of a mix. It starts with them as adults, and they get the phone call that Pennywise is back, and it's almost like a mystery unfolding. You're figuring it out as they are remembering things about their childhood. So it would show the older character going to back to Derry, and it's as they looked out the plane, they saw a light, and the light reminded them of and then it would switch back to 1958, which is when they're children in the book. And it would say the glimmer of the bicycle he was riding that day. And then it tells a short story of when they were kids. And then it goes back to being adults. It's much more of the adult story with flashbacks of being kids. I would say probably 1/3 is kids, and then 2/3 is adults.
Gotcha. I just feel like horror movies like this, they're probably just more popular out of the gate if it has kids, like Stranger Things and everything else set sort of when it's set. So I would like to see more in the future, even after this next movie, from this franchise. But I don't know if this is just kind of running its course, or if they actually maybe want to unfold it a little bit more.
I actually have seen, I believe it was an interview with one of the producers, and he was like, I mean, of course, if there's a good story, there's a million more stories to tell. Pennywise has been around since the 1800s or something, He's like, there's a million stories to tell of just before this last little bit of these kids fought him and he had to go into hibernation early, and then now the adults are trying to kill him. He's like, there's 100 years worth of stories before that.
Awesome.
Yeah, so super excited for that. Looks really scary. Apparently, they've also said, Jessica Chastain said, It Chapter 2 is basically Carrie on steroids. And one of the scenes that she's in it features the most blood ever used in a horror movie ever.
What?
Yeah. So I don't know what that's going to be, but
There's been
very,
some pretty, there's been some pretty bloody horror movies before.
I know. So I'm very curious as to what that's going to be. I think we get a glimpse of it in this trailer. We just see like basically a bloody person reaching up out of something. So it seems like that's probably what it's going to be, but I'm not entirely sure because I haven't gone frame by frame through the trailer to try and see if that was Jessica Chastain or not. But yes, super excited for It Chapter 2. Can't wait for that one.
What's next?
Next on my list, it's probably not something we're going to end up talking about a lot, but it just seemed important to include. It was like a cool, not really cool, but like an important piece of news about something. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is actually ending after its 7th season next year. That will be its final season.
Can't say I'm surprised. I hate to see it because one of my favorite shows there for a little while was absolutely Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. just because it was really the first show ever that truly tied into a larger cinematic universe and showed a lot of the what I would consider like behind the curtain stuff, like how the rest of the movies happened. And that was so intriguing. But even to me, it just sort of fizzled out. I mean, even as early as like season 3 and 4, it was getting less and less interesting. So unfortunately, it's not really a surprise.
See, I've liked the later seasons, but they have definitely jumped the shark in terms of like connection to the MCU and stuff for me. Like this whole the last like season or two has been about like they were time traveling and then they were in space and they like jumped forward into the future and now they like went back to present day, and it's just like a lot of different stuff. And then also it just straight up ignored the snap, which is, I mean, none of the Netflix shows did it either. Like but if you're trying to say that your show is in the MCU and you just blatantly ignore the one thing that you literally cannot ignore because it's 50% of all life on Earth, then you're either you didn't know that the snap was coming, which I highly doubt that, or you're just like, like even if they would have given us a cop out of like at the end of one season, people fade away. And then in like the season premiere, it's just one episode with half the cast. And then at the end of that episode, it's like the snap being undone and everybody comes back. And I know that's asking a little bit more of television shows because it was a 5-year difference between Infinity War and Endgame of people leaving and then people coming back. So it is asking a little bit more of shows. It's asking to kind of take your show off course a little bit. So I can understand the ignoring of the situation, but it just ended up making it like, well, you're clearly not following along anymore. And so it made it like non-essential viewing for me, you know, like I enjoy the show, but it's not essential for me to watch it anymore.
Yeah. I mean, that was for me, at least, that the whole shtick of that show was that we are the one show that can guarantee you we're highly interwoven into the movies themselves. So I feel like they just lost their way. But I mean, you say it's asking a lot, but in reality, if you have that Marvel banner above your title, then at the end of the day, you're in enough of those conversations that you got the option to opt in or opt out of having something like the snap happen in your show.
Yeah, I mean, I literally just got done saying like they jumped into the future, you know, like really we're already like, all right, yeah, future, who cares? So, but there are some more Marvel TV show announcements, which we will get to in our MCU, which is like the kind of final cap of this episode. But next up, another thing that is super cool, Jay and Silent Bob reboot trailer dropped. And also, they announced a Jay and Silent Bob reboot roadshow tour going all across the country, where Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes are touring the movie and then doing a live Q&A after. And Crocker and I will both be attending the Atlanta Q&A, and that's going to be on my birthday, actually. So that's super awesome. I've always loved Kevin Smith movies, View Askew Universe movies. I'm really glad that he's kind of, for lack of a better term, going back to the well, digging up some of the more View Askewniverse characters and bringing Jay and Silent Bob back, because this movie looks really good, all of the celebrity cameos and stuff. But I'm just super excited to see Jay and Silent Bob again. And they're like old friends that I grew up with that I haven't seen in like a decade, you know?
Yeah, that's a great way to explain that. I feel the exact same way. And we've already got our tickets, so we can assure you there will be a full breakdown and review coming soon.
Oh, for sure. And we just barely got our tickets too.
Yeah.
That place, I checked. I didn't tell you. I checked yesterday morning. It was sold out.
Oh, yeah.
It's a sold out show. There's 0 tickets left in that place. And it's like a concert venue. And
I mean,
it's
that'll happen, though.
0 tickets.
But it's Jay and Silent Bob. They have, like, they are the definition of cult classic. Like, they tick all the boxes.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
you know, they have the following.
Atlanta's a thriving film community now. So anytime there's like a big show like this where it's, hey, watch the movie and then talk to the people that star in it, and also the people that star in it, but also the writer and director. And this is like a return to a franchise that is full of cult classics, like you just mentioned. Like, of course it's going to sell out.
Yeah, totally.
But yes, incredibly excited for that. That's going to be awesome. Another piece of news, probably not something we're going to talk a lot about, but they did announce, James Cameron announced it at the Terminator Dark Fate panel, Edward Furlong, who played John Connor in Terminator 2, will be returning to his role of John Connor in the new Terminator Dark Fate movie.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think it's most excellent that they've got, a couple folks coming back. Sarah Connor's the other one, right?
Yes, yeah. And Arnold Schwarzenegger, but he's technically been in all of them, right. Even 4, he made like a CGI cameo.
Right. So I think it's good that they're bringing back more than just Sarah, so to actually see John there as well. I look forward to it. We've talked about it before. This is probably one of the top 3 films right now that I'm looking forward to actually dropping.
Yes. And I was actually talking to our friend David about this, and I was telling him, I just don't know why Terminator movies can get me hyped like almost no other movie. And I don't know the reason why. Like, they're not my favorite movies of all time. Like, I don't live and breathe Terminator, but anytime a new Terminator movie is coming out, I just lose myself in an obsession with everything Terminator.
It was kind of its only thing like that, though. Like, even in the day of Aliens and Predators and all of the other, Van Damme movies of the time and everything else that were coming out, like, the original first few Terminators were great movies that really pushed some boundaries. I mean, CGI at the time, I remember when, what was it? I guess just the T-9000 or whatever the guy is that could turn into the liquid metal. Like, that blew my mind the first time I saw that. And at the time, I really wasn't even paying attention to how good CGI was. It was the last thing on my mind. So, and the story itself too, like it was kind of like the Blade Runner of its day, kind of dystopian type of a setting, so it just had a lot going for it. It got what it deserved. And I think that it's a good thing everyone gets excited, although there have been a few in the past that may have let us down just a little bit.
Yeah, I honestly, really, the only one that's let me down, and it still has its qualities to me, was kind of Terminator Salvation, the 4th one with Christian Bale. Yep. And that's honestly because some franchises, to me, like the movie, and it sounds weird because I don't ever want movies to just become so formulaic that they're like predictable and you're like, oh yeah, got it, whatever. I don't care about this because there's no stakes. I know exactly how it's going to end. But Terminator to me was always about stopping the end of the world, like fighting in the present day or something like that to try and stop the end of the world. Terminator Salvation, the world had already ended. They were just fighting to maintain what they had left. And so it just didn't feel like a Terminator movie to me.
Didn't have the what do they call it? The Avengers level battle or fight.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really good like sci-fi apocalyptic war movie, but it just wasn't a Terminator movie. It wasn't a Terminator movie. And this one has, oh my gosh, so much stuff going for it. And it seems like from the trailer, I've heard a little bit of like the rumored plot. It looks almost like Judgment Day was stopped. Like Sarah Connor and everybody, they stopped it in Terminator 2. And then it looks, because John Connor is just not in the trailer at all, looks like he's going to die maybe. And so that's kind of shitty, but seems like they're bringing Edward Furlong back just to kill him off. But he's not in any of the trailers or anything we've seen so far. So either they're keeping him kind of under wraps or he's not going to be in much of the movie. But it looks as if they did stop it. And then because either John Connor died or what have you, like this Judgment Day was stopped, another threat rises, and it's still like the Terminator level threat. It's almost like Skynet evolves into a different threat. And then it's a reboot kind of the first movie where a person goes back to try and protect this woman. And I believe that the woman in the movie is pregnant with like the new savior, basically the new John Connor. And that's why Sarah Connor is setting out to help protect them and stuff. And she's basically saying, that's her line in the trailer, I understand what she's going through because I was her. Like I had to look out for myself because this also happened to me. And that's kind of what it looks like the movie's going to be about, which is fine with me because I liked Terminator 3's explanation for it in the very beginning where he's like, we thought we stopped Judgment Day, but all we did was postpone it. That's fine. Cool. I don't mind because I actually like Terminator 3. But I like this one a lot more where it's like, no, they stopped Judgment Day. Now it's just another Judgment Day happening.
Yeah. I definitely did not get all of that from the trailer. What I just assumed, and after seeing the trailer, is that just like anything else, when you alter the timeline in the past, then you're just going to set yourself up for the opportunity to have a new savior that must be, that they have to send folks after, and then you get the new protector of that one, and it's just the endless cycle that always continues. And then because it actually worked out in the end, assuming it does, then you throw off the next timeline, and then you get to recycle it all from the very beginning. That's just kind of what I always assume.
Yeah, and I think that's more in line basically like with what the plot seems to be of Dark Fate, but we don't necessarily know the plot that much yet. That's me getting context clues from the trailer, but then also hearing like theories and stuff online of what people think the movie's going to be about.
Well, can't wait to see.
Next up, probably going to be the movie you're most excited to talk about. I think we got a new trailer for the Cats movie.
The Cats movie?
Yeah.
Like Broadway Cats?
Yeah, I was just trying to throw you off your game.
I was thinking I was like Lego Cats, Star Wars Cats. Like what has a Cats? What's Cats?
No, like Broadway Cats. And I don't know. Have you watched the trailer?
No, I'm not.
It looks terrifying. It definitely lives within that. I believe it's called the Uncanny Valley.
Yeah, where it's a little too real.
It's not cartoonish enough, but it's also not real enough. And so it's right in the middle of like, they have CGI cat bodies, but with human faces, but the faces have like whiskers and stuff. Like it's extremely unnerving. I don't know. I've never seen the Broadway musical. I honestly don't even really know what the show's about, but I just watched the trailer because it was getting so much attention on the internet. And man, those people, like the cats in it, they look scary. Like it looks like a horror movie.
Well, yeah, I'm looking at stills right now, and I absolutely agree. I feel like Cats was always like there was a version that came out when we were kids, like in the 90s, and I feel like that was always in the stack of VHSs because I was always in band class and art class and stuff like that, and they all sort of share like that same pile of VHSs that you get to choose from when your teacher's out of town. Cats was always in that pile, but I don't think I ever paid enough attention to actually even give you a brief synopsis of what it's actually about.
Yeah, I have no idea. And I was talking to my wife about it, And I was like, I mean, the Cat in the Hat movie that came out in 2003, they just put Mike Myers in a cat suit. And like, to be totally honest, he looks more real to me than these cats do in 2019. And they tried to be like all fancy and CGI with it. Like, just put people in cat suits. They look so much more real than
Yeah.
these people look right now. They look
Well,
terrifying.
now I do know that on Broadway, like the cats costuming, like there's some very famous cats and their specific like, look with the fur and all of that. So I'm sure they had to go deeper into that audience maybe than the general audience just to be sure they didn't screw anything up. But
Well,
it looks like, gosh, Taylor Swift is going to be in it. Jennifer Hudson.
yeah.
Idris Elba is in everything nowadays. That surprises me none.
He's the bad cat.
The bad cat. Okay, what's next? Cats.
Okay, moving on from that. Shudder, which is a horror streaming service, is restarting or is starting a Creepshow anthology series. And Creepshow, of course, based off of the old Stephen King, George A. Romero movies that came out, which were anthology movies, Creepshow 1 and 2, and then they didn't have anything to do with it, but Creepshow 3 was also released. This trailer had a lot of interesting people in it, and it looks like they just revamped Tales from the Crypt almost. Like, that's exactly what it looked like to me, was just like old horror stories from comic books, and it has like a ghoul type figure as the host, or like the connection between. He's like the guy who's reading all the comics that we see the stories from.
Gotcha. And that's just going to be one show on this service?
Yes, the service already exists, and it has all kinds of like movies and TV shows and stuff, but it is strictly horror, nothing else. Like, it's only for scary stuff.
Gotcha. That's cool. I didn't know that existed, or if I did, I had forgotten.
Yeah, it seems interesting. I've never even gotten like a free trial to it or anything, so I don't really know too incredibly much about it, but I do know there are a few movies that are on there now, specifically Summer of '84, which I really want to watch. That's like a Shudder exclusive movie. That's not streaming anywhere else but Shudder. And there's a couple other movies that like they don't stream anywhere else but Shudder now. So it's definitely like rising up. It's becoming pretty big, and I think this Creepshow show might take them into the next level because it looked pretty good and it looked really interesting.
Nice. Well, I'm always down for short horror stories. Tales from the Crypt, Goosebumps, you name it, I dig it.
Right. Yeah.
Even
It's
like
super
there.
easy to tell a scary story in like a 30 or 45 minute time span.
Yep.
Because all you need is like one scary guy with a knife, and you have a scary story.
Yeah, drop him in literally any scenario, and you could tell a 30-minute scary story.
Yeah. Next, they did announce that Tyler Hoechlin, who played Superman in Supergirl, and he was in the most recent crossover Elseworlds, where he returned to his role as Superman, will be back for the Arrowverse crossover this year, Crisis on Infinite Earths. But they also announced that Brandon Routh, who is known currently for being Ray Palmer / the Atom in the Arrowverse, I believe he started on Arrow, and then now he's a main character on Legends of Tomorrow, is also returning as Superman, a role that he played in Superman Returns in 2005, I believe, 2006. He's returning to the role of Superman, and not only is he going to be Superman, he's going to be Kingdom Come Superman, which is like a very famous comic from back in the day.
Now, what was this for? What's he playing Superman in?
The Arrowverse crossover that's happening this year, Crisis on Infinite Earths, that's going to be 5 hours long and crossover with every Arrowverse show.
Gotcha. So is it safe to assume that in the Arrowverse, they're just not even playing like they're in the greater DC like cinematic universe? They keep it totally separate.
Yes, it's separate for now. I mean, there's been like 2 separate Flashes, one TV show, which is super popular, and then one in the movies, which was had his divisive audience. But, I mean, DC has been really smart, especially the DC TV, about like Supergirl, and I believe we've talked about this on the podcast before. Supergirl already exists on an alternate Earth than like Arrow, The Flash, and Legends of Tomorrow happen on. She exists on an alternate Earth, but whenever they need her, they just pop over to her Earth, grab her and bring her back. So they've already set up the multiverse, and they've been using multiverse stuff for years, basically, at this point. And so while they haven't had any direct crossovers to the DC movies, by them just stating that there is a multiverse and all of these different things can happen, they're connected to it,
Yeah, true story.
And they didn't announce it, but God, I hope it's true. I just want to see Tom Welling back, who played the role of Clark Kent / Superman on Smallville for 10 years. I just want him back for just one episode. Like, just bring him back in the crossover for one. It's literally called Crisis on Infinite Earths. He is on an Earth.
It's funny you say that, because I've told at least 2 people in the past month, like, we randomly got talking about superheroes or TV shows, and randomly, somehow, both times, I was like, you know what you should go back and watch if you've never seen it? Smallville.
It's so good. I love Smallville. And I hated Superman before I watched Smallville. So Tom Welling has been and always will be my Superman. He is the person for me. How people prefer Michael Keaton Batman or Christian Bale Batman, Tom Welling is my Superman. And I'm a huge Superman fan. We never really got to see him become full Superman in Smallville. So I just want to see it. Just one episode. Just give us Superman. And I would lose my mind. They also announced, this is confirmed, unlike Tom Welling, which is just a wish for me right now, Burt Ward, who played Robin in the Batman 66 television series, is also coming to the crossover this year in the Arrowverse.
What? I wonder if that's just going to be like a nod, and a grin type of a cameo, or if he's actually going to play an important role.
Yeah, that's what everybody's saying, because when they announced that he was going to be in the Arrowverse crossover this year, they didn't say he's returning as Robin. They just said Burt Ward, who played Robin in the 60s Batman television series, is coming back. So nobody knows if he's playing Robin or if he's playing a different character. And so it will just kind of be that like wink and nod type cameo. So we're unsure at the moment. But if Brandon Routh, who played Superman in one movie and who is already established in this universe as playing an entirely different character, is returning as Superman, I mean, nothing's off the table for this right now.
Yeah. I kind of dig that. I think DC needs that right now. Like, in all of their properties, like, nothing's off the table. Do what you need to do to get the job done and make it as entertaining as possible.
And the TV shows are straight killing it. They all have had killer seasons recently. And Arrow, of course, it's its final season this year, and it's only going to be 10 episodes. So a lot of people think its series finale might be the Arrow's like part of the crossover, which its 100th episode, I believe a few years back, was Arrow's episode of another crossover. And not only did they keep like the crossover element going, it was also just a good episode of Arrow. And we were able to revisit like a lot of stuff from the Green Arrow's past, basically because of what was happening in the crossover. So we were able to see like past characters return and all this stuff. So it was a super interesting 100th episode, and one that I really enjoyed. So if they honestly did that again for the series finale, and we were able to see like all of these characters return and just get like a good send off to Green Arrow, but it's all told within this like bigger crossover, that would be fine with me.
Yeah. I need to get caught up and all that.
You need to, because Crisis on Infinite Earths is going to be insane. They're already calling it. They're saying this is DC's Endgame, basically. And it's not even happening in the movies. It's happening on the television, on the television screens.
Interesting. I'll put it on the list.
But yeah, super excited for that. We got a new trailer for Walking Dead Season 10, which is going to be Denai Guerrera, who plays Michonne, her last season on The Walking Dead. So very interesting to see what happens with that. But it looked pretty good. Walking Dead, actually, I thought it was going to be a huge mistake having Rick Grimes leave. Actually breathed a lot of new life into the show. And I enjoyed the show more after Rick Grimes left last season, more than I have probably in the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, Walking Dead is one that I've been meaning to come back to, but honestly, I figured surely it would not make it this far. In fact, I remember hearing on what feels like more than one occasion that it was canceled. Oh, is that whistles I hear?
Yeah, that's whistles.
What's that sound mean?
That means it's halftime.
Woo woo!
So halftime is the part of the show where Crocker and I take a break from the conversation we're having. We talk about, funnily enough, recent movie news or trailers we've seen, which is basically this whole episode. So this halftime won't be super long, but there was a couple of news things I did see come out last week that I did want to take a break for because they weren't Comic-Con. So I felt it didn't feel right lumping them in with all of the Comic-Con news we got. But it was still like super cool things that I wanted to talk about. So I don't know if you had anything this week, Crocker, or not.
The only thing I had down for this week's halftime is that we did, or at least I got to see the new Spider-Man movie, and it was awesome, and there'll be more on that in the future.
Yes, we will definitely be doing a full Spider-Man Far From Home review where we'll get our full thoughts down and everything coming up probably within the next couple weeks at least.
Good for me.
All right, just a couple things for me. Number one, something you'll be really excited about. The Dark Universe is continuing because The Invisible Man started shooting this week.
Woo-woo! That's awesome. So over the past couple of months when I've been Googling all that, it seemed like nobody had a for sure answer on what was actually going to be happening in the future. Like, there were enough people that had already been cast and signed the dotted line, and enough commitments that everybody was like, there's definitely going to be action moving forward. And then some people were like, no, this is like the calm before they finally just, throw that final lump of dirt over the what they're burying it in. So at least now we have confirmation.
Yeah, and Johnny Depp is not playing the Invisible Man. So they kind of wiped the slate clean a little bit, it seems like, for maybe who they had that did sign the dotted line. And they're more or less starting over, which is smart because The Mummy totally flopped. So I don't know what plan they had, but it seems smart for them to kind of be like, okay, let's start from fresh. Let's figure out what we actually want to do and not try and stuff a universe into one movie, which is definitely what they tried to do with The Mummy.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I know there was one that even flopped before that could have been the beginning. I think it was a Dracula.
Yeah, Dracula Untold with Luke Evans. Yes, came out in 2013, and they were already in production of that when the Dark Universe stuff started spinning up. So they put a little in teaser at the very end of that movie, and if that movie was super successful, that was going to be their start to the Dark Universe. That movie was not successful, so they were like, "Ha, just kidding. That was for the second Dracula movie. Got you guys. Totally not for the Dark Universe, even though it was." And they tried to start again with The Mummy, and then that one flopped. And they're like, "Ha, got you guys. Oh my God, double got you guys. That was just a Mummy movie with Tom Cruise. We didn't even like it that much. The Dark Universe is really going to start now."
Yeah. Well, that's interesting that it's not going to be Johnny Depp, because he was one of the things that people were like, it's already confirmed. Like, he's got to do something type of a deal.
Well, I mean, also to just have Johnny Depp in your movie to not actually be there. Johnny Depp would just voice over that movie. It's literally The Invisible Man. He's not there.
But the Invisible Man spends a lot of his time wrapped up in bandages and with powder on his face.
You really think Johnny Depp would come in there and wrap bandages on his face? He probably would, actually, now that I'm saying this.
Because half of what Johnny Depp sells is his character, like how he carries himself and what he does. And Johnny Depp would see the Invisible Man as exactly the challenge he needs in his life. I totally could see Johnny Depp just rocking that role like nobody else on the planet could.
As I was saying, do you think he would come in there and wrap bandages on his face? Everything that you just said ran through my mind in a flash. And I was like, oh no, he would totally wrap bandages on his face and come in there and do some kind of accent and get his millions of dollars.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next, while Netflix has not greenlit it yet, apparently Stranger Things 4 is set to start shooting this October for release next year, which would be great. And it's also rumored, again, no official confirmation from Netflix or the Duffer Brothers or anything, Stranger Things 4 might be the last season of the show.
Really? Why is that a rumor?
They apparently the creators just want to kind of wrap it up. The kids are getting super big, especially Finn
Lucas.
Wolfhard and Millie Bobby Brown are doing a million things every year separately from Stranger Things. And the kids are just getting older. And so because they're doing so many other things, it's hard to get everybody back together to like shoot the shows. And honestly, I'm sad because I like Stranger Things, but that's fine with me. I would much rather them like wrap it up and instead of trying to stretch it out and just making it like intolerable. I never want to get to a point in my life where Stranger Things comes back on and I go, oh, Stranger Things, crap, I'm going to have to watch that to be caught up. I never want Stranger Things to become that thing, which a bunch of shows have done. Supernatural is one. I used to be incredibly excited for Supernatural to come out. And then it eventually just ran for so long that it got to a point of like, oh man, I got to catch up on Supernatural. I never want Stranger Things to be that.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that a couple of weeks ago that like Lucas is about to be a grown ass man, so they better get filming quick if there's going to be a next season. And I mean, that's just what happens when you're dealing with kids, I reckon. And I want to see that team of individuals who put that show together just basically when they wrap up season 4 of Stranger Things, just open that new project. Like I want everybody to hang out, same office, same staff, same jobs, just put all of that energy and effort and expertise towards the next, whatever it is, the next IP.
Yeah, and especially now, have you finished Stranger Things 3?
No, I'm 2 episodes away.
Okay, I won't say much anymore then, but you have seen at least so far then the Russians are now finding out about the Upside Down. So the world is expanding basically beyond Hawkins, Indiana that knows about the Upside Down and all of these stories. So even if it becomes not Stranger Things with these characters, there's still a place for Stranger Things, the world, to exist as long as there's a story. Like if it becomes an anthology series about something happening like from the Upside Down to like new characters once every like 1 or 2 seasons, that sounds great.
Oh,
that would
yeah.
be awesome.
Totally. And I mean, Millie Bobby Brown's whole character, like they never said she was like a special one or one of one, right? Like we could assume that there could have been many children in her position.
Well, yeah, and I mean, as we saw in season 2, she is 11, which is her name. She was the 11th person in that program, whatever you want to call it. But she knows telekinesis and all this stuff like that. Number 8, who we also meet in season 2, can cause people to see things in their mind that aren't really there. So there's technically 9 other people out there that we don't know about. They might be dead. They might not be dead. Who's to say what powers they have,
Yeah. I forgot that she met 8. Yeah, that's right. So totally. So bam, there's your story. You can even call it Stranger Things now.
Yeah.
You know?
So, I mean, there's still millions of stories to tell, I think, in that world. And even if it doesn't involve these characters, which it's already getting harder. 3, I really enjoyed 3. Honestly, probably my favorite season of Stranger Things. But at times it did feel forced of like why this just keeps happening to these characters, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like
yeah, you don't want to exhaust it.
Exactly. Every time something starts to go wrong, it's always these people, every single one of them that get involved somehow. And so it's fine. They've so far, 1 through 3, have been good about explaining why they get involved, how they get involved. But there were times at 3 where I was like, come on, like literally these people every time, that can't be it for Stranger Things for the end of time. It's always going to be these like 9 characters that have to stop it.
Right.
But yeah, super excited about that. They also announced, John Carpenter announced, based off of the newest Halloween movie that just came out last year, Halloween 2 and 3, they just announced, which is going to be called Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, coming out October 2020 and October 2021. And that's going to apparently wrap up the story of Michael Myers and Laurie Strode.
I'm kind of glad that they took that last movie and made it into a bit of a trilogy.
Yeah, I enjoyed the last movie. I did have my issues with it, which we've talked about on this podcast before, mainly Laurie was our main connection to a character on screen. And if she's not scared of Michael, I'm not scared of Michael. And so if that's the direction they're going, that's fine. They just need to make it like, like from the beginning, she's not scared of Michael. But I had a few issues with the last movie, but as the same with any movie, I'm just glad to see these characters return to the screen. Anytime there's a new Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Friday the 13th, if that ever happens, Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, I'll be there. Day one, I'm there. Because I just want to see these characters on the screen again. And I want to show my support for more slasher movies in general, because they're my favorite kind of horror movies. So I'll be there day one for both of them. No matter what I said about the last one, I'm always willing to come in with a fresh slate, clean shot. Show me what you got.
Yeah, there's no doubt that Halloween is on those list of movies where you just owe it to it.
Yeah, for sure. And and they've proven it before, like Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers, not the best. Halloween H2O, which came out right after that, my favorite movie of the franchise. So you can never go off of the movie that came before whether or not you're going to like the sequel, especially to these horror movies where more or less the sequels are like start their own story again,
Yo.
So those are coming out. And then finally, 3 from Hell tickets went on sale. They're doing a 3-day event, Monday through Wednesday, September 17th or September 16th through the 18th. And we've already got our tickets for that too, or we're going to get tickets soon for that. And we're going on Wednesday. So we will also be having a Firefly discussion about House of a Thousand Corpses, Devil's Rejects, and 3 from Hell once we see that. And we will have a special guest on that episode.
Woo-woo.
But that was it for me for halftime. So like I said, not much, but just some stuff that wasn't Comic-Con news, but I was still excited to see.
Back to the Comic-Con news.
And funny, we actually stopped with Walking Dead. We can pick up with Walking Dead. They also released a teaser trailer for the first Walking Dead movie coming out starring Rick Grimes. And what a lot of people weren't expecting, at the very end of it, it just said only in theaters. Everybody was expecting for it to just go straight to AMC. No, they're releasing it to theaters. Universal Pictures is releasing it this year in theaters, the Walking Dead movie with Rick Grimes.
Really? So yeah. Was it just going to tell a story that somewhere in the middle of the season 1 and the new season?
No, Rick Grimes has left the show. What I was just talking about before, he left. Everybody on the show believes he's dead, but he's not. He got picked up in a helicopter by a currently unknown group of people. We don't know who they are, but they have a helicopter and like military outfits, and they seem really like in charge and know what they're doing, but we don't know who they are.
Oh, okay. So that's what I was saying, is if he's left the show, then it's got to be something that's happened a slice of time in between the beginning and what we have now. But you're saying that it's just going to continue the story off in his own direction.
Yes. They fly him to, I don't even know, an unknown city. The teaser trailer was basically just shadows and pictures, like it showed a helicopter flying into a city, and it looked like a pretty big metropolitan city. So it could be New York or Chicago or Texas, like who knows where they flew him to, because we don't know. But every other character is still in Washington right now, and then Fear the Walking Dead is in Texas. So if they flew like literally anywhere else in the country, like he's never going to find those people again until they eventually like form out and stuff,
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense.
And that's apparently the first of 3 movies that are coming out starring Rick Grimes. And a lot of people believe that Denai Guerrero, who plays Michonne, is leaving Walking Dead season 10 because she's going to end up hearing something from Rick on like a radio comm and then go find him. And then she's going to be in the movies with him, because now she's a huge friggin' superstar after being in Black Panther and the last 2 Avengers movies.
Right.
After that, The Witcher just released its trailer. I don't know if you had a chance to see that or not.
No, I did know that it was in the works, but I did not see the trailer. I have actually heard a few people, though, just in mumblings of Comic-Con, say that it actually looks surprisingly awesome, like better than they were expecting.
Yeah, super like sword and sorcery type show. which is fine with me because I like that kind of stuff. Also, just from a few of the establishing like scope shots that we get in the trailer, looks like it's going to have an incredible like depth, and it looks like it was an expensive show to produce. So Netflix clearly has bought into the idea that this is a very good show, and they're willing to spend money on it because they believe people are going to either come to their platform or stay on their platform to watch it. They think that it's going to click because they've clearly put a lot in the budget.
Yeah, totally. Well, I can't wait for that. And I'm always down for any kind of like a video game show crossover.
Yeah, and also Henry Cavill is the main character. And that's awesome because I feel like even though Henry Cavill was Superman, he caught kind of a lot of flack for Superman. And I will go down in the books defending that he was a fantastic Superman. He was just in bad Superman movies. And so hopefully this role will be a little more well regarded for him because I think that he's a really good actor. He just hasn't been able to like connect with the audience yet.
I look forward to it.
Next, Zombieland 2 Double Tap was it had already been announced, but just came out with a new poster announcing the release date, which is going to be October 18th of this year. So we should be seeing a trailer sometime within the next month or two, I would assume.
Awesome. I was wondering when that was coming out because, I mean, we've known for at least 2 years now they've been making it.
Yeah, and Zombieland was, for a brief period of time, my favorite movie ever. So go ahead.
I said I could see that.
Yeah. I love horror, but I also love comedy, and that blended it extremely well for me. So I can't wait for that one. The fact that they got everybody back is super cool. And apparently the plot synopsis that came out said now they're having to deal with zombies that have evolved since the first outbreak. So we might be getting some more like Resident Evil type zombies in here that have like different powers or abilities or something, and they have to deal with those, but then also new human threats that are rising. And also it said but the most thing they're going to have to deal with is the growing pains of their makeshift family that they made in the first movie. Now they've technically known each other and have been living as a family for a decade. So now they're starting to like run into issues with each other and stuff. And they've been living in this world for more than 10 years at this point. And they're, I guess, starting to wonder whether or not they made the right decision forming a group with the rest of the people they're in the group with.
What, has it been 10 years since the first movie came out?
It is actually releasing, I believe, a week after the 10th anniversary of the first movie coming to theaters. Yes. Came out in 2009.
Wow, dude. Talk about mind-blowing. I cannot believe that movie's 10 years old.
Yep. Came out in 2009, and the new one's coming out in 2019.
Jeez.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're going to need more Twinkies.
Well, they came back, but I guess not in that world because there's no more Hostess anymore. Watchmen, which is going to be HBO is adapting it as a television series, got a new trailer. And I, unfortunately, have never read the comic. Have you?
No, I've never, much like most comics, I have never read that one.
Okay, so then just from what I know of the Watchmen, which is basically coming from the 2009, I think, Watchmen movie that Zack Snyder made, this show looks nothing like that almost. It's like it looks like almost it was inspired by the Watchmen comics, but it takes place in its own like part of the universe. It's not the main Watchmen story that everybody's come to know. Like, it doesn't have Rorschach, the comedian, Dr. Manhattan. We only saw briefly in this trailer, and it was people just saying, oh, that guy lives on Mars. But it was like none of the Watchmen that I know from the movie, at least. I don't know how the comic shakes out because I've never read it. So if somebody has read it out there, they're probably listening with blind fury if this is actually like following along with the comics and the movie just didn't at all. But looks really interesting. I'm actually super excited for it. It looks like there's it's exploring more of a world of people know that they're superheroes in their world, but it's following along with people who take up the mantle of heroes but aren't necessarily heroes, and then how do the ordinary people have to fight back against that threat?
Yeah, I'm glad you sort of explained it that way, because for me it almost came off as like a adaptation of some type of a prequel of before the story we know and love, like some sort of, back in the early days, this thing went down.
And there was a comic series that came out, I believe it was called Before the Watchmen, but there is a prequel comic series, so that might also be more in tune with what this show is going to be. But this show, for me, at least from the Watchmen stuff I've seen, just looks like it's existing in its own part of the Watchmen universe, which is fine with me because it looks super interesting. I mean, we've seen superhero team ups now. We've seen superhero team ups, but they don't really like each other that much. We've seen superheroes that aren't necessarily super, they're just using their powers for like fame and fortune. We've seen that. So the fact that this is kind of taking that universe and making its own like little corner of it is totally cool with me.
Yeah, as always.
And then I'm actually going to let you take the lead on this because I didn't get to watch it and I don't know that much about it, but I did send it to you yesterday. We just got our first like official Picard trailer for the new Patrick Stewart Star Trek show that's coming out to CBS All Access. So why don't you take that one and talk about it a little bit more, because I actually don't know that much about it.
Yeah, it looks awesome. Star Trek, I haven't been keeping up with as much as I should. There's already like a newer show that's happening right now that I'm not currently watching.
Star Trek Discovery.
Yes. And thankfully, though, my stepfather is keeping up, and he does keep me in the loop occasionally. But I do want to get back into Picard because the Next Generation, TNG, was like my favorite sort of season, or not season, but favorite, what do you call it? The lineage of Star Trek shows out of all the ones.
Series, iteration.
Yeah, iteration. And then, of course, we got a few teasers in the trailer. We've got Data is back. They sort of pieced him back together, I reckon. We see the Borg, which we always kind of know as the big baddies. And then Seven of Nine, which was from the Voyager series. And she was a Borg. So there's probably some connection there. And it's the same kind of story that we've seen with Picard a couple of times, where he tries to retire and realize that life just isn't for him. So he gets back in action. However, in this trailer, there was like a little bit of, it reminded me of, Serenity is the movie, but Firefly is the name of the show. Yeah. Kind of, it reminded me of that because there's like this one girl that seems to have some type of superpowers or something that he has to like take care of and get to safety or escort somewhere. We don't know yet. But either way, I don't want him to go too superhero-y with it or too Firefly-esque with it. But I don't think they will. I have my hopes up, and I'm super excited about it.
Okay, I am posing this right now to you, and I feel like I know what your answer is going to be. But I have honestly, besides just a couple episodes of The Next Generation, I've seen a few of the movies and stuff. I've seen more than a handful of episodes of Star Trek Enterprise. But other than that, I've actually never seen really any of the Star Trek shows in depth or anything like that. You just mentioned that you really want to get back into the Star Trek universe. I am proposing right now a new 30-minute show a week for the Scruffy Movies channel, where you and I watch, starting with the original Star Trek show, an episode of Star Trek every week on our own, and then get together for 30 minutes to talk about it. And we make our way through original, Next Generation,
Voyager,
Voyager, Enterprise, Picard, Discovery. We make our way through everything.
I'm so down. I'm in.
And that way it'll keep the both of us accountable. One, because I've actually never seen as much, and I want to see it, but I've never seen as much as I've wanted to. And then you, because you want to get back into it. So you might actually flip it on its head and you'll end up, whereas in this, I just happen to know more about movies because I'm just more interested in it. You'll know more about Star Trek and what's coming next than I will.
'Tis true. There is Deep Space Nine I never really got into. Like, there was a few there where they just kind of missed me. Like, what I was doing in my life at that moment just didn't correlate. So it'd be nice to actually go through and be doubly sure that I knock them all out. Because, like, I would say with confidence that I've seen every episode of TNG, but that's just because I know I've seen most of them multiple times on repeat, so on reruns. So surely I've gotten them all in. So it'd be nice to just confirm that and go through it methodically.
Wow, and one a week. Well, I guess we'll be done in like 10 years.
I was about to say, yeah, that's going to take. I mean, that will literally take a decade, probably.
We'll just see how it goes. If you're like really feeling the Star Trek that week, and I'm really feeling the Star Trek that week, maybe we'll watch like 3 or 4 episodes. Like, like who knows how it's going to end up shaking out.
Oh, we can kill a season. You can knock out a season in a week. Maybe. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, we'll see. But that show, I guess, might be in development for the Scruffy Movies channel. So we'll see how that goes. And then finally, the last piece, which I'm sure we'll actually have a full episode devoted to breaking this down a little bit more.
Top Gun.
The Marvel Cinematic Universe panel.
Oh, you missed Top Gun. Got to put in Top Gun.
See, that's exactly why before we started this, I was like, I just wrote down everything that I saw. If I miss anything, let me know. And that is perfect. You just nailed it with Top Gun Maverick, which I totally forgot.
I've literally been sitting here the entire time waiting to talk about Picard, Top Gun, and Marvel.
Well, we got 2 or 3. You take 3 of 3. Go for it.
All right, new Top Gun trailer. Looks awesome. We all know it's going to be awesome. You'd think that he would have a new motorcycle now, but nope, he still drives around a 1978 Ninja or whatever it was. It looks great. I mean, there's not much to say. It looks like it's fallen right into the same vein, and probably very much of a, like, I'm just born for this. It's, I'm cut out for it kind of a show, because they do point at the fact that he should be like a 3-star admiral by now, but he's still flying. He's still a fly boy. Just looking for that adrenaline, man. That rush, that need for speed.
I need to watch Top Gun because I remember it, but I remember it like from 15 years ago when I was a kid. I haven't seen it since then.
Yeah, this movie looks like it follows a lot of the same beats from the first one.
Yeah, I definitely need to check it out because I just remember like my brother was super into it. And so in order for me to like hang out with him, I went, oh yeah, I love Top Gun, even though I don't know if I loved it very much when I was a kid. So I definitely need to like rewatch it and form my own opinion about it because I was colored by just wanting to hang out with my brother. And so I made myself like Top Gun, whether or not I actually liked it. So I definitely need to watch it again and form my own opinion.
Well, you should do that tonight.
I don't know tonight, but definitely before Maverick comes out because I do want to see Maverick. I did watch the trailer and it does look super interesting.
Yeah.
All right, and then
now we can go
which we're probably going to talk about in a limited capacity here, but like I said, I'm sure going to be a full episode devoted to it in the coming weeks of actually breaking down everything that we got. But Marvel had its Phase 4 panel last night, and they announced the Eternals movie, which is coming out. I'll give like a brief rundown, then we can talk about whatever we want to, if that's cool with you.
Yep.
The Eternals movie, which is coming out November 6, 2020, which stars Richard Madden, also known as Robb Stark from Game of Thrones, Kumail Nanjiani, Selma Hayek, Angelina Jolie. That's coming out super soon. That's going to be a lot of fun, it looks like. I don't know anything about the Eternals, but I love Kumail Nanjiani. Number one, he makes me the most excited for this movie. So I'm very excited about that. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier show, we just got a little bit more information about that. That's coming out fall 2020 to Disney+. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, which is one that super excites me because this one is going to be about the Ten Rings, which has been around since Iron Man 1, but is also going to feature the real Mandarin. And Shang-Chi is a character that we haven't seen before yet in any of the movies, so brand new, but he's coming in brand new off of a storyline that we already know, and that I don't think has happened yet in the Marvel Universe, so that seems incredibly interesting to me, and I'm always super interested in more of the like Chinese mythology and stuff like that. I feel like we don't get that a lot in modern movies or TV shows, but we definitely used to get it all the time. And so it's just a very interesting subject to me. I'm really excited to see more about that. We also heard more about WandaVision, another Disney Plus show, which is coming out spring 2020. That's going to feature Elizabeth Olsen returning as Scarlet Witch and Paul Bettany returning as the Vision. And that's going to take place post Endgame, which a lot of people weren't expecting. So that's going to be really interesting. And that actually rolls over directly into the new Doctor Strange movie, which is called Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And it rolls directly over because of something that happens to Scarlet Witch in the WandaVision TV series is going to directly affect her being a main character along with Doctor Strange in the new Doctor Strange movie. And that comes out May 7th, 2021. And Scott Derrickson, who directed the first Doctor Strange movie, also was known primarily for horror movies before he got into Doctor Strange. He directed the first Sinister movie, which was a really scary movie with Ethan Hawke that came out. And he announced that Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is going to be the first straight up horror movie that Marvel has ever done. So they're looking to make this one just straight, like, terrifying, which is sounds great. Loki, which is another Disney Plus show, is coming out spring 2020. And not much about that one, just the fact that it is for sure taking place after Endgame, whenever he grabbed the Tesseract in the 2012 timeline and bounced, that this show takes place based off of that. So the Loki that we've come to see evolve and become an ally to Thor and kind of to the Avengers is no longer there. This is the Loki that just tried to blow up New York City, and he has not had any of like the good come through his character arc yet. So I don't know what that show is going to be, but that seems super interesting. That comes out, I believe I said already, spring 2020. They announced and just got a little bit more information about another Disney Plus show called What If, which is just going to be famous parts of the MCU, but deconstructed if something else happened. What if Killmonger was born in Wakanda? What if Peggy Carter got the super soldier serum instead of Steve Rogers? So it just kind of takes a look back at these famous scenes and storylines that we already know that are already established in the MCU and then twist it on its head. And it's going to be an animated show, and a lot of the same actors are coming back to reprise their roles that they were originally in the MCU. And it's all going to take place because of, I believe his name was The Watcher, but he's going to be basically the crypt keeper of this show. He is watching all of these alternate universes unfold. So while it technically is in the greater MCU, it's also not, because it's animated and it's just like a fun what if type show, but still super cool. I'm actually really interested in that. That comes out summer 2021. And then brand new announced just last night, Hawkeye is getting his own event series on Disney Plus, which is going to be about him training Kate Bishop. That's coming out in fall 2021. Thor, which was announced recently this week, Taika Waititi was coming back to write and direct a Thor 4, was just announced to be called Thor Love and Thunder, and it's going to feature Jane Foster, Natalie Portman, returning to her role as Jane Foster to become the first female Thor, which is a storyline that happened, I believe, in 2013 in the comics. It was called The Mighty Thor, where Jane Foster actually took up the mantle. So that one is going to be incredibly interesting. And I know a lot of people have said they don't like that title. I personally love the title Thor Love and Thunder, because that is perfect, like, for how they have developed Thor to be like a funny type character. That's the perfect title for this new movie. I'm very excited for that. And then, of course, Black Widow, which we just got a little bit more information about. May 1st, 2020, that's actually going to be the first one that comes out. And a lot of people, which we weren't expecting, Black Widow takes place after Civil War. So everybody thought it was going to be a prequel movie about Black Widow in the 90s. That is not what it's going to be at all. And I believe it's going to be introducing Yelena Belova, I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, played by Florence Pugh, as the new Black Widow. David Harbour, who is also Chief Jim Hopper in Stranger Things, is going to be in this movie. And the Taskmaster is going to be in this movie, which is a really cool, I think he's known primarily as a Spider-Man villain, but basically he sees you fight for 10 seconds and he can mirror your moves perfectly. So he is incredibly hard to beat because he can do literally anything that you can do. And they showed a teaser trailer for that, but they haven't released that to the public. But of the people there that saw the teaser trailer have said it was a Jason Bourne type level of action and like action groundedness and stuff like that. So that's going to be really cool. And then finally, the announcement that blew my mind, Mahershala Ali, 2-time Academy Award winner Mahershala Ali, will be coming into the Marvel Cinematic Universe to play Blade in his own movie, which I never saw coming. Maybe a Netflix show, definitely not a movie, and definitely not starring an Academy Award winner as Blade. So that's going to be incredible. Also, just announced in development, Kevin Feige didn't really go into much detail other than to say these movies were coming. Black Panther 2, Captain Marvel 2, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, X-Men in some form. He just said mutants, but X-Men in some format and the Fantastic Four are all currently in development at Marvel Studios, and we'll probably get announcements for those relatively soon because the latest they went last night was to 2021. So around next year, probably we're going to get the next slate of Phase 4 stuff to come out, and I'm sure that'll include X-Men and Fantastic Four and all of those movies. But I've talked for a very long time, and my mouth is totally dry. So why don't you take over a little bit, Crocker, talk about some of the stuff you were most interested in, what surprised you the most of the night, basically just what did you think of all of these announcements?
My bullet points are Black Widow. I'm definitely really, really looking forward to. It's no secret she's one of my favorite characters in the entire MCU. I did hear that it would be taking place in, is it Bangladesh, right?
Budapest.
This is Budapest. So it's strange that it's not a like period piece prequel type of a movie if that piece of information is actually true. But I am looking forward to it. Falcon, Winter Soldier, I think it's the weakest out of the entire lineup.
No way.
I'm not a fan of really the Winter Soldier at all, and I am a fan of the Falcon, but not a huge fan. So we'll see how that does. But
they did announce. Sorry, not to interrupt you because I just talked for a while, but I totally forgot to say this. Daniel Bruhl, who played Baron Zemo in Captain America: Civil War, will be returning in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and he's going to be the main bad guy, and he's going to wear his like purple mask and stuff from the comic series. So that's awesome because I loved him as Baron Zemo in Civil War. I thought he did great.
Still the weakest out of all of them.
No way.
The Eternals, it looked great, but they got a little too PR-y with me last night. Like, I know we know literally nothing about the movie, but the entire time they were talking about the Eternals, it was like, we've got big, strong women in the lead. Lots of big, strong women. Oh, we have the first deaf person ever playing a deaf person in this movie. And it got like really, I don't know, they just went like off the deep end on the whole please love us because we pick strong women, not because, you know, they're awesome and that's why they're there. Shang-Chi is also awesome. I think that one has the most depth available to it. Like when they showed the little highlight reel of everywhere we've seen the 10 rings so far, there were a lot of those that really did like blow my mind, or I would have noticed them but never like connected them to anything. And I think this is probably Marvel sort of handing over one property to really try and get the Asian market like more on board with what they're doing potentially, because it's starring some really major people from Asian movies and stardom, whatever they call their Hollywood. What's that? What do they have, like a Bollywood type of a name in China?
I don't think so. Not as far as I know, at least. Did you see the guy who's playing Shang-Chi? I believe is a relatively unknown guy. At least I didn't know him from anything I've seen currently. He screen tested on Sunday, was hired on Tuesday, and then was at Comic-Con on Saturday. So all within a week, he got the role and then was announced at Comic-Con.
I feel like there was a telephone call somewhere like 2 weeks ago where they're like, "What do you mean you haven't picked somebody? Like, you have to say who this person is at Comic-Con." So I
Yeah.
hope they didn't just rush through it to get it there. But
Well, I
it
don't. The guy they announced seemed incredibly charismatic. He talked for probably like 2 to 3 minutes, just like kind of talking about how excited he was and all this stuff. He seemed incredibly like charismatic and knew what he was doing. So he seems like a good choice for me. I don't know anything about Shang-Chi the character, but I like the actor so far of what I've seen.
Yeah, and they, like I said, they look like they potentially have, with the exception of the What If show, they probably have the most to play around with, like the most available to them, or at least with what I want to see, which is greater tie into what has come before it. You know, like you said, all the way back to Iron Man 1. WandaVision is, of course, it's like Black Widow for me. Scarlet Witch is one of my favorite characters, and especially because they're sort of kind of like S.H.I.E.L.D. from the very beginning, they're touting this one as one that is going to correlate very heavily with movies that are actually happening in the MCU, which is a natural segue into Doctor Strange, the first horror movie, like real horror movie we're going to get. And they even said on stage, like, what good is a wizard without, the best wizard without the best witch? So they are really, really going out of their way to tie those together. Loki, I'm neither here nor there on for a couple of reasons. One, because, like you mentioned, he's sort of off on his own. They can really do whatever they want, and partially because for like that entire part of the stream, for some reason, the stream I was watching just went completely silent. So I literally did not hear anything from like the Loki section of the presentation.
We watched the same stream because also like same. It just
Okay.
dead silent.
The What If, as I mentioned, I think that is going to definitely have the most depth if they really truly leverage it. And they showed a screenshot of everybody that's kind of returning from the MCU, and it looks fantastic. It is sort of off on its own because it is animated and whatnot, but I think it'll be a welcome break of just new cool content to absorb. Hawkeye, again, one of my favorite characters, and I believe that they did say like old girl's daughter from Captain Marvel will be in Hawkeye, right?
No. Monica Rambeau, the adult Monica Rambeau, who we did last see as a child in Captain Marvel, will be in the WandaVision show.
That's it. She'll be in WandaVision. Okay.
Hawkeye will be about him training basically the new Hawkeye, Kate Bishop.
Gotcha. I knew that there was some youngling interaction somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
Thor is probably, obviously my favorite. That Thor has the best title art ever. I want that on a t-shirt. Thor, Love and Thunder. Just give me that. Just wipe the Marvel off the top and just give me that text on a t-shirt, and I would wear that every day. It's just like stone 1980s rock band. I love it.
I was just about to say that it looks like Thor is the name of an 80s hair band and Love and Thunder is the name of their concert that they're putting on and touring America with in like 1986.
Exactly. Now we did get a lot of, or not a lot, but some info there, which you mentioned as well. It's going to have, basically She-Hulk, or not She-Hulk, but female Thor, and then old girl, lesbian king of Asgard is going to find her lesbian queen. So they did again draw special attention to that. Which, whatever, they're in Hollywood, they have to like give nods to those people. So we'll let it slide. But that is probably what the Russo brothers were talking about in their interview, where they mentioned that he was the first, when he starred himself in Endgame, that he was like the first openly gay Marvel character. And then in that interview, he was like, well, buckle your seatbelts because we got some things coming down the pike in regards to that. So I would assume Valkyrie is what they're talking about there.
Yeah, and I liked that how they did the first openly gay character in the MCU, which was just this random guy. And I know people were kind of giving it a little bit of crap because they were like, well, he wasn't a main character. It wasn't focused on the fact that he was gay. And I was like, exactly. He's just a guy who lives in this universe. He just happens to be gay. That's exactly what representation looks like. It's not a big, bold, like, guy coming out and being like, I'm a superhero, but I'm also gay. It's just a guy who's talking about he lost a loved one, and it just happened to be his husband. That's exactly what representation and equality is.
As long as they make it a Thor movie that stars lesbians and not a lesbian movie that is about Thor, then I'll be good with it.
Yeah, and we've talked about that before. I don't mind if movies or TV shows make a point, because that's fine with me. But if they start making the point more than the movie, I'm going to have an issue with it. And I think that it's in incredibly good hands with Taika Waititi. He has literally never made anything that I haven't enjoyed.
More for me, it's just like, for the love of God, do not waste this movie. This is the next Thor movie we get. Do not fuck it up, please. Just do it good. And then Blade, which I feel like I knew Blade was happening like a week ago. Did you not see
no way.
Stuff? Yeah, I swear I caught a sneak peek of that coming down the pike.
No, I remember them saying they were having talks with like Wesley Snipes to come back and play Blade again, or something, for like a Hulu show or something like that. But the fact that it's going to be like a huge tentpole movie starring Mahershala Ali, holy crap, that blew my mind. I couldn't believe it. And I love Blade. Blade's like, I mean, like, if you were a kid in the 90s, you know Blade, because Blade was like the first, even if you didn't know it was Marvel, Blade was the first Marvel movie you probably watched and just had no idea that it was Marvel. So,
yeah, Blade is definitely one where I remember watching them and being like, oh, these were awesome, but they just like went in the pile with all the other like high action movies of the time. So I do need to break those back out and watch them again.
yeah, because I was so excited, started rewatching the first Blade this morning.
Nice.
But
nice,
yeah,
nice.
so Marvel definitely has an incredible slate coming down the pipes. And like I said, this was just our initial reactions to it. I'm sure within the next week or two, we will actually sit down and put what we expect to see in the movie, put some thoughts behind Phase 4, because we've had a Phase 4 prediction podcast already, but it was literally just us saying, this would be cool for Phase 4. Now that we actually know what some of Phase 4 is going to contain, we have to do another one where we actually talk about stuff. And I, for one, am super excited and happy about the fact that not only are they announcing the shows as part of Phase 4, they're straight up saying this is directly connected to the movies that are going to come out after it. Like, if you don't watch the show, you're going to be lost, which is something that they have never done with their shows before. So I'm really excited about that. That really interested me, that these shows are directly, like, they were announced as part of Phase 4.
I'm super pumped. A lot of awesome things coming out of Comic-Con this year. Probably be more awesome things today, but I doubt it'll be anything that'll top what we got to hear last night.
Yeah, I was just literally like reading a Twitter feed from 8:15 until 10, because that was about the time it happened, Pacific time for them as it happened for us here on Eastern time. But I was just reading a Twitter feed, just getting live updates from a Twitter feed. And I was still losing my mind just in the quiet of my living room. TV was off. It was just me focusing on that Twitter feed, was losing my mind. And
at about midnight last night, I was like, all right, it's been long enough now that surely someone has like put together a good cut of the stream or something like that. I was wrong, but I at least got to see it. That's all that matters.
Yeah, I was losing it as they were announcing stuff. And in fact, I actually got to see they released, like, I'm sure little teasers and stuff before the actual titles, because as you saw from that stream, they cut out the videos because the videos are technically like copyrighted material and stuff.
Yep.
And if anybody who listens to this podcast follows me on Instagram, I was posting the titles to my Instagram story as they were coming out, and then just like a little tiny GIF of my reaction to what the titles were. I was posting one, and as I was posting it, a little notification window popped down, and it said, Jeremy Renner has started a live video. And I was like, oh, what did he start a live video for? That's interesting. So I clicked on it, and as soon as I clicked on it, it was a video that they were playing at Comic-Con of like Hawkeye moments in the MCU. And then they were like, ladies and gentlemen, Jeremy Renner, and brought him up, and he was talking, and the woman who was moderating the panel was like, I heard you might have something you wanted to announce. And he pointed at Kevin Feige, and he was like, he has something he wants to talk about. And so they played just like a brief little tiny trailer, again, much like the Walking Dead film. It was just shadows and stuff, like just was some close-ups on his bow and arrow, and then it was him like as a shadow jumping and shooting an arrow. It showed Kate Bishop for a second, and then it announced Hawkeye and zoomed back out, and then the crowd was losing their mind. So I actually got to see that one like live as it was happening, but it was the only one that I got to see like that.
Yeah. Oh, good old Instagram Live.
I know. I was as soon as it went boop, Jeremy Renner started a live video. I was like, oh, well, that's interesting.
Yo, I've seen entire pay-per-view fights on Instagram Live before. You gotta know where to look.
Well, that was about it. Like Crocker said, probably going to be some more news coming out today, but I'm sure that if any does come out that's super cool, it will be in our halftime for next week. We hope you guys enjoyed. What was the thing you were most excited about to hear come from Comic-Con? Let us know below. There's no digital code giveaway this week. I was just racking my brain to try and remember what the digital code we were giving away was. This is the first week we were not doing that for now. But please follow us on Instagram at Scruffy Movies.
And Crockalicious.
And we thank you all for listening, and we will see you next week.
Bye.